Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I am Dr. Anara Tabashalieva, along with co-hosts Dr. Victor Fett, Dr. Katerina Shrey, and our program producer, Professor Larry Shrey. We host a weekly discussion panel on Russia's war on Ukraine with guests from Ukraine, military experts, medical personnel, academics, artists, literary figures, and relief workers. Our panel is recorded and circulated nationally and internationally. We appreciate your comments and feedback. Special thanks to Marshall University Libraries and MUIT for making this weekly event possible. If you are joining us live on Teams, please feel free to use the chat to post any questions for our guest. A quick greetings to our viewers in Ukraine from Professor Katerina Shrey.
Вітаємо наших слухачів в Україні з глибоким покліном. Ми далі свідки вашого страшного терпіння і також вашої великої сили. Дякую вам за вашу участь в нашій тижневій програмі.
Thank you, Katerina. Today's guest will be introduced by Professor Victor Fett.
Thank you, Anna. It is my great pleasure to welcome back my friend of our program, a veteran journalist, writer, and historian Semyon Reznik, who resides in Washington, D.C., with a timely presentation titled Anti-Zionism equals Antisemitism. I first heard about Semyon Reznik probably 45 years ago when I read his books back in Russia. Semyon hails from Moscow, where he was noted already for his important Soviet-era biographical books. And he emigrated to the United States in 1982 and became a Voice of America anchor for us who still were then Soviet Union. We knew his voice, radio waves. He became a leading personality in fight against Soviet and now Russian neo-Nazism, in which, of course, Russia blames Ukraine now. Jewish history is intricately connected to Russian and Soviet and Ukrainian history, and it cannot be more timely right now with aftermath of atrocities of 7th of October in Israel, with the ongoing wars both in Ukraine and Israel. I specifically ask people to look up publications by Semyon Reznik for those who read Russian. There are many, including the famous commentary on Alexander Solzhenitsyn's infamous book, 200 Years Together. And he has also books in English, one back from 96 called The Nazification of Russia, and a fiction book, Chaim-and-Marya or Bloodthirsty Lovers. There are more things which I could talk about, but I will leave microphone for the next hour to our great friend, Semyon Reznik. Semyon, please talk to us.
Okay, thank you very much for such presentation. What I can say, we live in very difficult time now, and with my skepticism as a person who studied history, I could not expect such development in Russian-Ukraine war, and now in Israel and Hamas war. And what maybe is especially sad and discouraging is the reaction of these events in now United States and in European countries and so on. So I talked with Victor Fett, and we decided that I will tell a little bit about the so-called anti-Zionism movement that is flourishing now in not only in the Middle East, but here in the United States and in Europe, and to demonstrate why anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism is the same, because these people who are so angry on Israel about this war with Hamas, they claim that they are anti-Zionists, but they are not anti-Semites. So I will demonstrate this mostly give a little bit from my book. It is in Russian, it is not published in English yet, maybe it will be. That was the title, The Mythology of Hate. Mythology of Hate. Because all anti-Semitic, anti-Zionistic, anti-Judophobic, and many others, not only Jews is concerned, ideas, these explanations why they all are based on mythology. They are not based on real facts or real events. They are based on mythology. And I wrote about this. And first of all, how the term anti-Semitism has appeared. I think not many people know that first it was published in a book by German publishers of late 19th century. The book was published in 1879. That was called, the title was in English translation, The Victory of Jewry over Germanism, considered from secular point of view. It was written in 1879, and since that time, word anti-Semitism, term anti-Semitism became recognized all over the world. And what about earlier time? What about before this year 1879? Jews were hated in ancient times. We know from the Bible, from Torah, that how they were treated in Egypt, and they lost Egypt because of this. But this is just religious book. What about secular books? There are a lot of there was Soviet Russian and Soviet linguist Solomon Lurie, very great specialist on antiques. He studied Greece and Roman literature, culture, languages, of course, and so on. So he wrote a book, Anti-Semitism in Ancient Time. It was published in 1922. He demonstrates that in works on the greatest philosophers and writers of ancient Greece, Tacit and others, he quoted fragments that demonstrate how they were described Jews, hated Jews. During after the Christianity rise, we know that Jews were blamed as the killer of Jesus Christ. What could not be, because it was a Roman Empire. Jesus Christ was of Jewish origin. He was a Messiah, as he created him. Messiah, according to Roman understanding, was revolt against the Roman Empire. That's why Pontius Pilate had no other choice, but when he was caught, they crucified Jesus Christ. Who was Pontius Pilate? He was Roman head of the Judea at the time. His ethnic background, some specialists found, studied this, found he was of German ethnic background. But nobody remembers this. Hundreds and hundreds of years, Jews were hated because they crucified Christ. Then they were hated because they used blood of children for their religion rituals. All this, of course, are mythology. This has nothing to do with reality. But in the new time, after the Renaissance, after this religious domination of church, of Catholic Church especially in Europe, started to go down. The society became more secular. And to persecute Jews because they are not Christians became not commonplace. It was not good in 19th century. So these people who still didn't want, there were a lot of liberal, ideas in the society. There were less persecution of Jews. Jews became secular, the same. In Jewish history appeared such ideas of Haskalah, that was Moshe Mendelssohn, 18th century philosopher. He put this idea, enlightenment. He has that Jews should not separate themselves from their society, German society or French society. They have to go to become more secular, and all these problems would from time to time go away. And it was very, very interesting ideas, and they were met very good by Jews, and some of them were further than Moshe Mendelssohn asked them, be Jewish, follow your father's tradition, your religion at home, but in street, be real such person as everyone else. And his grandson, great composer Mendelssohn, he was already Christian himself. And people of his generation, like Heinrich Heine, great German poet, was Christian. Karl Marx, at the time, was Christian. And they believed that all problems were in the past. But at the time, these people who still didn't want to be on equal hand with Jews, they started to create a new language for explaining this. In this, Wilhelm Marm wrote this book, how these secular Jews are undermining and killing German identity, German society, German statehood. And this word anti-Semitism became very popular. There were anti-Semitic organizations, they were gathering symposiums, they were described in press, and so on and so on. And only after World War II, after Holocaust, after all this extermination of millions of children and elderly people and women just because they were Jewish, this word anti-Semitism became a bad word. Nobody wanted to call himself anti-Semite, and they were very angry. But people who hated Jews remain. In Soviet Union, that was created as a country of proletarian internationalism. All ethnic groups or nations are equal, but capitalists are, the evil, and working class is good class. As they cannot attack Jews because they are Jews. They started creating, Stalin's time, for example, they created a bad word, cosmopolitan. People who are not good patriots of Soviet Union, of Russia, they are cosmopolitan. They were Jewish nationalists, and so on and so on. So many Jews were killed on the pretense that they were killed not because they are Jews, but because they are cosmopolitans, because they are not proletarian enough, and so on and so on. This ideology was, after Stalin's death, it went down. But in my time, in our time, in Soviet Union, in 70s, especially, and I can tell the exact date, after invasion in Czechoslovakia in 1968, now people don't remember much about this event, but it was very crucial event. Czechoslovakia was a socialist country. It was part of the socialist camp, as they called it. But they started reforms that in Kremlin, people, this head of Kremlin did not like these reforms, more democratic. They called, we want to build socialism with human face. And this was very dangerous to Russian Politburo, because it might go to Soviet Union. So they invaded Czechoslovakia in 1968. It was very good military action, excellent military action. In few hours, tanks came to Prague. They surrounded their party central committee and arrested all these leaders of this, as was called at the time, Prague Spring. Military was great, not like the invasion in Ukraine. Putin's, I mean. But they have to explain people why they invaded brotherly country, Czechoslovakia, our socialist brother. And in order to explain what was wrong in Czechoslovakia, they invented the word Zionism. Zionist took from inside Communist Party of Czechoslovakia, became their leaders. It started this Prague Spring in order to took away Czechoslovakia from socialist camp, and they had no other choice but to invade Czechoslovakia. This was pretext, and after this, it became a wave. People counted 230 books from the late 60s to 85, when Gorbachev came to power, was published on about international Zionism, that want to destroy Soviet Union. They want to destroy all socialist countries. They want to take everything. Israel is just a small part of this. International word, international Zionism, this is the main danger of our society. These books were published in many million of copies. This was counted about 10 millions of copies of this book were printed. I at that time tried to write something contra, some reviews, something. No one line could be published, and this actually forced me to emigrate, because I understood that while we Russian more liberal, more writers, Russian dissidents, I was not one of them. It was too dangerous to be open dissident, but we always sympathized to academician Sakharov, to other dissidents who wanted to move Soviet society, became it more open, more liberal, more westernized. There was another wave to replace communist ideology that was already didn't work. It didn't work, especially after this Czechoslovakia events. Nobody believed in proletarian, in future communism, that everybody would be free and happy. So they started to impose this ideas of national, that Russia is everyone, all the world is against Russia. They want to destroy Russian culture. They want to destroy Russian people. They want to take all Russian everything, to kill all Russians. So it became this. Why this Victor mentioned my book. I will show it. The Nazification of Russia. This was the ideology of Nazification of Russia that was, and as we see now, they achieved these goals. It was many modification and all the stuff, but in the end, now this, especially this invasion in Ukraine, left no reservations about this. Russian regime is Nazi regime. It's not as aggressive as Hitler's, because they has no enough power to do it. And but in their attempt to destroy Ukraine now, before that was Georgia, before that was Chechnya, we know all this. They cannot survive in their recognized borders. They cannot survive in these borders. That's why they created these ideas that everyone is against them, and on head of everyone who is against them are Zionists. And when here in the United States people were fighting against these many public societies, groups, and demonstration, before Gorbachev came first to Washington to meet with Ronald Reagan, before his coming, there was a big demonstration in center of Washington under the under the word let these people go. We didn't ask much from Russian authorities, just to let Jews who cannot live there go to Israel, to United States, where they came. So I was participant in these demonstrations. There were hundreds, thousands of people from all over the country came, and vice president at the time and the candidate of next presidency, George Bush, was one of the speakers there. He made very powerful speech. And we all believe that here in the United States, such a thing cannot be. But now we see what is going on in our leading universities, what is going on in New York City, what is just 2 days ago in New York subway in they appeared guy, who is Zionist here? Come out from here. You have last chance to come out. Otherwise, we'll kill you. It was today. I read that police could not identify this guy, who was in mask, who told these words. But there was a wagon full of people who supported him, who applaud him, and who it doesn't exist anymore. We have freedom of speech in this country. Could you imagine that somebody will come out on the street in New York or in Washington with a slogan, Ku Klux Klan should come back? We cannot imagine such freedom of speech in this country. But to say Hamas is for Hamas, Palestine should be free, Jews open genocide in Palestine. This is freedom of speech. We cannot do anything about this. This is very dangerous development, and in that what is actually my message today, and if there would be some questions, I think I told most what I wanted to tell.
Thank you, Semyon. Thank you very much. And I open the panel, please, for questions on current, and we have touched upon a lot of history here briefly, so I can ask my questions later. Please, comments and questions. Yeah.
Comments. A huge thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. This is an important topic, and especially today, and my heart breaks for the suffering of the people in Israel and the Jewish people. I'm a medievalist by training, and sadly, history has verified everything you're saying. Is the persecution of the Jewish people has been awful. My primary area is English, medieval English literature, and there is no lack of examples of brutality and persecution of the Jewish people. Just I'm sitting here learning a lot, and not in a position to ask an intelligent question, but I just wanted to thank you very much for educating us about this important topic.
Thank you. There is a lot of examples, but we have no time for this. But what I can tell only is to read my book. Mostly of them are in Russian, but at least this one, the Nazification of Russia, it is in English. It can be found somewhere in
I'm going to put it in the chat. I'm going to put it in our chat. So
it is still available online from some stores online. It's 96. It is almost 30 years, Semyon, since, well, more than 30 years since you wrote the book. Have you predicted in it, for example, the degree of fascism, Russism, whatever it is, indeed Nazism, which will prevail in Russia? When you definitely were looking at unfortunate Solzhenitsyn's book and at Zhirinovsky evolution and all this, but for us, at least those of us who left Russia, these events did not seem to be very central, didn't seem to be mainstream, although we know that ultra-nationalist Nazi Vladimir Zhirinovsky was supported by many, but this was still a minority. What do you think have happened? Did these people come into some agreement or balance combination with modern leaders? What happened?
This is a good question. Of course, we cannot say majority or minority, but there is active minority. Active minority that is doing this. You know these names, not all people here know, but for example, Alexander Prokhanov. Very famous in Russia, very famous writer, an editor of a newspaper, who is published all this year, dozens of years. He is of my age, so he is not young. The Razan, наш современник, our contemporary literary magazine. That is Stanislav Kuняev was editor for last dozens of years. But before that, in Soviet time, under the censorship, whereas you cannot say directly what you can say now, they already did all the stuff. And I was not, you know, what was for me, I think dangerous is people here in the West did not realize all this stuff. When this perestroika started in Russia, when this some liberations and some people was excited about going on, they overlooked this under this umbrella of free speech, this so-called Pamять society. They called this great mathematician Shafarevich, who was a dissident, published a book Russophobia. When he accused Jews of being Russophobes, and all what bad happened in Russian history, according to him, came from Jews. Solzhenitsyn wrote this two volume, 200 years together, demonstrating again that all bad was happening in Russia before the revolution, then during the revolution, that after the revolution, Jews were leaders of all bad things that happened there. And I will, you know, on this book there is on the cover, I will just read small words, but Galina Starovoytova. You know, this great woman who was one of the leading voice for democracy in post-Soviet Russia. She was very close first to President Yeltsin, but then other groups moved her out. Finally, he was killed in 1998.
Galina Starovoytova was killed.
He was killed, but before that, I met her here. He was here. She was here. I was in Moscow. We became friends with her, and this her what he wrote about my book. She is very complimentary to me, but I want to put not on this emphasis, but on this essence of her understanding of the situation. She wrote, current political situation in Russia makes Semyon Reznik account extremely important and acute. It traces the development of official Russian anti-Semitism through the ages, but mostly shows the brown shirts of today. Based on thousands of facts and documents, this book shed a new light on rising Russian fascism. She knew it, she saw it, she fought against it, she was fighting against it, and she was killed for it. In 1998, she was killed. In 1999, Yeltsin gave his power, his president power, to Putin.
For many years, I have a question. If one is raising hands, for many years it was said, first of all, by Israeli government, that Putin is a friend of Israel, or at least not an enemy. Many times we have heard Russian propaganda saying Putin is anything but anti-Semitic. Personally, he has Jewish friends and all this, Rothenbergs and mafia, some of whom are Jewish, Roman Abramovich. And so the impression was that at least this size of Russian Nazism was not prominent. But it looks different now.
It is, there is different levels of anti-Semitism. There is just, I don't know how to say it in English, бытовой anti-Semitism.
Household, yes.
Yes, household anti-Semitism. There is an administrative anti-Semitism. The Jews are not allowed here and there. And maybe Putin has nothing against Jews in this aspect. But there is ideological anti-Semitism. When Jews are not just discriminated, they are hated, they are scapegoat for everything what is wrong. And this kind of anti-Semitism, people who promoted these ideas in Soviet Union, Putin did not do anything against this Brakhanov, this Pamyat society that was disappeared because of inside fights there. But it was such Pamyat society, very, very outspoken anti-Semitic group that and the others. I don't see that Putin did something against this stuff, but he tolerates that sometimes on Hanukkah he invites Jewish priests, Jewish rabbis to Kremlin, and he wants to demonstrate that he is not so low-minded person. But after his invasion in Czechoslovakia, I'm sorry, in Ukraine invasion, he started this. He started this in 1914. After President Obama told his friend, "I would be flexible." He wanted to conquer all former Soviet republics. He told this from the beginning. He wants to do it, everything. Russia is the biggest territory in the world. No such country could compare, other country could compare its territory. It's forests, it's a lot of it, but they don't feel good in these borders. of them. They have to take something. And of course, we know the Baltic states that why this? They joined NATO. It's not so. Somebody promised Gorbachev these countries will not join NATO. Wait a minute. No one country was taken to NATO by force. All countries want to join NATO because they were, because they were afraid of this big brother. Now we know this Finland that was neutral so dozens of years also failed to join NATO. Sweden joined NATO. NATO cannot not accept countries that, according to the NATO's legal status, they have to take them. Poland wants to be in NATO. Poland don't want to be in NATO, but Poland has to be in NATO. Otherwise, Putin will destroy Poland as he destroyed Ukraine. As he captured without force, actually he captured Belarus. We know this.
This was planned for Ukraine as well, obviously, but it just wasn't meant to be so. Semyon, we thank you so much for talking to us. Your passionate impact has been very important for me personally, and I just want to thank you, to have this opportunity to thank you, and I will ask if somebody else has a comment or a question. Of course, many issues we discuss here are more than well known. Those of us with Soviet background, with those who have been over there in 1970s and 80s and during Perestroika. But it's remarkable how these issues play together still, because it is now 40 years in the desert since Perestroika, and no one could predict. People were, I'm afraid, much more optimistic on all sides of these issues. And when you are optimistic, your security suffers probably. And we have seen many examples for the last 40 years. And of course, what's going right now in Israel and in Ukraine, among the most prominent issues of current history we're living in it. I want to one final question. Of course, we all know that Vladimir Zelensky is of Jewish origin, and the Ukrainian Jewish history is uneven road. We have interviewed many people on Ukrainian Jewish and Jewish-Ukrainian relationships on this program, but it might not be known to the in English-speaking public. Putin and his people emphasize the case that even a Jewish person like Zelensky, in their mind, can be a Nazi. So they don't care. And we all heard even Sergei Lavrov, Russian foreign minister, bringing back the old story that Hitler had some Jewish blood in him. So this is their old game. What do you say about this?
It's very good question, but we live in a time that all meaning of all terms of words meanings are made upside down. Now they're overturning everything. Look here in the United States, this they started to fight against racism, what of course is very important part of American history and heritage, and we have to overcome all this stuff against blacks, other minorities, sexual minorities, all the stuff again. As soon as this fight started, people forgot that Jewish people are minority in the United States. Jews are not minorities here anymore. Jews are this white privileged part of white privileged majority, and should be treated this way. In spite of the Jews, 1,000 years, Jews is classical sample of minority, right? So this is one of many examples. So if they say that somebody is racist, so look deeper. If you see that this person who says this has this background of racism, not that person whom they accused. This we see all this freedom. Zelensky, Ukraine, yes, Ukraine has very not nice history against the Jews. But during this, after the Soviet Union was collapsed, Ukraine have 5, if I'm not mistaken, presidents. Russia has 1 president who gave his presidency to second one. Yeltsin, then Putin. Whereas, what is the difference? Yes, there are a lot of corruption in Ukraine. We know now what to do. This we give them aid, and how we know about corrupt people. But what about corruption in Russia? In Putin? Why Navalny was killed? Navalny didn't fight for something. He fought against corruption. And until he showed one these new Russians, yes, corrupted people. But when he showed this palace of Putin's himself, this was the red line that Putin could not accept. So we know what happens to Navalny. So we have all this. We have to very, very skeptical to all these terms, because they are now are working down. It's not nice to be anti-Semite in America, but anti-Zionism, Israel had genocide of Palestinian people. We are for Palestinian people. They're not for Palestinian people. They're for Hamas. And we know all this on all levels, unfortunately.
Thank you. Thank you, Semyon. Thank you, everyone. If we have no more questions or comments, Leslie, yes, please. I have the raised hand. Yes, please.
Well, I've got basically one thing that's kind of a comment and one thing that's kind of a comment and one that's partially a question. The first one is that I agree with you that a lot of people here in the US get very hung up on their anti-racism ideology and classifying people into oppressors and oppressed without acknowledging that pretty much every racial or ethnic group has had some individuals who have been oppressors and some individuals who have been oppressed at various times in history. So a lot of people's ideological analysis of situations lacks nuance. The other thing I want to say is that I believe that Israel has a right to exist, and I believe they have a right to attack Hamas. I do think that there is some legitimate criticism of the way that the current Israeli government is carrying out the war, both from a humanitarian perspective in terms of civilian casualties in Gaza, and from a tactical perspective that bombing tunnels is maybe not the best way to destroy Hamas. Probably the better tactical move would be to go into the tunnels, which obviously is a lot more dangerous for the soldiers involved, but that's the way things are sometimes. I mean, you look at the history of the Vietnam War, people had to go into tunnels to fight the Viet Cong, so. But would you say that there is some legitimate criticism of Israel that can be done here in the United States?
Yeah, I see that that this criticism that is we see here in the United States, and unfortunately it comes from the top. It comes from the President Biden. That we will have Israel, but Israel should not do this, should not do that, should not do this. You know, during World War II, 90 days, Leningrad was at siege. Half a million and a half people died from hunger. Nobody had in mind to say that Hitler should give food to starving Leningrad. There is very simple way to end the war in now in Gaza. Hamas should surrender. That's all. And war is very terrible, very terrible thing. There are a lot of mistakes people are making during the war. But Israel doesn't want to kill innocent people. Hamas kills them, using them as human shield. You see many demonstrations you have seen in the United States and campuses who protest that Hamas use children and women as a human shield. You didn't see such protests. You see protests against Israel. 150 people still are refugees taken by Hamas. You see protests that demand to release these hostages. Israel exchange hostages, one for 100 or 200 or 1,000 terrorists that are in prison there. I think this is a big mistake that make for Israel. That Netanyahu many times said, Victor reminded this, that he said something what had good relations with Putin. I think there are a lot of mistakes from the side of Netanyahu trying to please Putin. There are a lot of mistakes they are doing, but this is not in this scale of humanity and so on. It's absolutely different subject that should be studied and will be studied in these people in Israel who were responsible for this attack on this should be studied and people should be punished. But what they did on 7 October, they allowed. They believe that they have so big, so good scientific, border that they don't need people there. They did a lot of mistakes. They did, and they do, and they are criticized inside Israel about this stuff. 2 million Afghan people from Pakistan now is removing from Pakistan. Did you hear some kind of protest in America against this kind of act. Such things are going on in many, many countries. But in the center of everything is Israel, who want to survive. Israel has right to survive. Did you hear that somebody said about I say, Bangladesh? Bangladesh has right to survive. Nobody questions this stuff. But surviving Israel is questioned. 80 years Israel exists. In 80 years, there are people, groups, organizations, multi-billionaires who want Israel to destroy Israel. That's why we have to defend the great Israel have a right to survive. So this this double, you know, counting, we have to always keep it in mind. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you for the
Semyon.
answer,
Thank
though.
you.
I missed
Thank-
part of it because my internet went off, but
Thank you,
I'll
Leslie.
go back and watch the whole bit later.
Thank you, everyone. And it was a pleasure to host you, Semyon, today. We will conclude today our session of Ukraine discussion group, and I will ask Dr. Shrey to say a few words in Ukrainian to our viewers in Ukraine. I expected a few today, but Kiev has electricity outages, as we know, so we don't have anyone from there right now.
Дорогі браття і сестри в Україні, ми зберігаємо вас у наших щоденних думках, молитвах і серцях. Нехай милосердний Бог тримає вас у своїй опіці. До наступного тижня. Прощаємося.
Слава
Thank you.
Україні!
Героям слава!
Thank you to
Героям
everyone.
слава!
Thank you. Very
Thank you.
appreciated. Victor.
Israel High.
Hi.